as well. Max Olson, senior writer, covers college football for theathletic.com, joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio. Max, I saw the note that just was popped up about the Big 12 14-team league and when it becomes that and what do they do and what divisions. What do you think they'll do? What would you like to see them do?
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma here. From my reporting and talking with several ADs, the sense is that when they have their Phoenix meetings, May 2 through 4 here coming up about a month from now, that is going to be the chance when all those ADs, including the 4 new members, all get in a room along with all the football coaches. And I think that they want to come out of those Phoenix meetings with a clear idea of what the divisional plan is going to be for next year, which, is really, in terms of those new members coming in, we're really only 15 months away. So it is time. I know people may find it hard to believe that they're actually going to go through with this, a 14-team league next year, but you got to start planning for it. And, right now there's a lot of issues that come with that topic. What do you do with Texas and Oklahoma? Do you put them in separate divisions or the same one? Do you even need divisions? And can you get the NCAA to change a rule that kind of requires you to have divisions to play a conference title game? A lot to work out there. And they were presented with 3 models, when they met as among ADs in Kansas City during the Big 12 basketball tournaments, and not a consensus right now on which one's the best way to go, or even if they need divisions.
Could they maybe make some sort of agreement with the Big Ten and the SEC that also have massive leagues and say hey, can we figure this out so that we can all have the flexibility to do what we feel is best within our league?
Talking about a super league, or are you talking about
just talking about just some sort of, just an agreement that hey, let's present this to the board all together, the rules committee, so that they say, okay, well, it's not just the Big 12, it's these 3 that would like to change this rule, and it can affect everybody.
Yeah, from what I've heard, that there is a sense that there's leadership in the ACC that also is interested in changing that rule, which right now, the requirement is that you either have divisions and the winner of your division is playing a conference title game, or you did what the Big 12 has done for the last 5 years, and you play full round-robin schedules. And obviously, for this new Big 12, that's not going to be the case going forward here either way. So, you can't do the 9-game round-robin anymore, so they would need divisions. It's possible they can get that changed. It's a very outdated rule that goes back to the 80s. But, I'd be curious to see. It is possible that the Big 12 leadership could come out of those meetings in May and decide, we can't agree on a model, and maybe we think we just shouldn't have divisions, which, as long as you can work out fair schedules kind of across the board for people, which in a 14-team league, you would obviously you got to preserve, the important rivalries and things like that. But I suppose they could get through it without divisions. And look, one of the things the Big 12 has going for them is, having the 1 versus 2 in the conference title game, and that being your best foot forward in terms of playoff hopes.
Max, a couple of weeks ago, I noticed a website, Navigate, had put out these projections on the future conference payouts for the Power Fives, and your colleague, Nicole Auerbach, I guess saw that as well, and she wrote an article kind of detailing some of the information that was in there, and it paints a very daunting picture for everybody not in one of 2 leagues, really, the Big Ten and the SEC, who not only look like they'll just absolutely dwarf, but in some cases double or triple up on what other conferences are making, the power conferences, much less the others. Where are we headed, do you think, with all of this? Because that just seems like a disparity for 2 conferences in particular that's just going to be hard to imagine college football kind of being what it has been, or is it basically what it has been this entire time?
No, yeah, you're right. We're talking about a situation where the SEC and the Big Ten, in terms of their revenue, just pull far away from everybody else. And I'm sure that concept gets Greg Sankey thinking about the real long-term future here. And can we kind of split off from this if we're the ones that are just in a different class here? And so. It drives home the point that, certainly I know no one's expecting that the Big 12 make as much money as the SEC in the future, but it is very important to still be on the same level as the Pac-12 and the ACC. And that's where, the negotiations in a few years on the new TV deal and trying to get to a place where you feel like the revenue distributions to your members is really, is what they need in terms of maintaining the current level. I think that's so important. But clearly, you look on the horizon and you see those two leagues are heading in a totally different direction, and it's hard not to assume that that's going to affect the sport in a lot of ways.
Max, Congress has a couple of different bipartisan bills in front of it in the House and the Senate that would reform NCAA investigations. Do you think that they can actually get that done, since the NCAA is essentially throwing up its hands and is begging the government to figure out their issues for them?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's hard to know if that's just wishful thinking or if there's a possibility there that we could kind of go in that direction. But clearly, Mark Emmert is not doing great in his hopes that that the politicians can solve all of his problems for him, and that's one where I thought that really cracking down on how ridiculous the investigation process is a reasonable topic to bring up and to figure out in which ways can we start to expedite this process, because the longer this drags on, there's really no, like, in no way are you discouraging other people from cheating if there is truly no repercussions in the short term for anything people do.
Max, Arch Manning has become, or has been for a while now, a very hot topic. I know Texas is heavy on him, and I guess Ole Miss and amongst others. Just how crazy do you think the circus is for Arch Manning? And I haven't had an opportunity to really see much of him. I mean, what kind of a prospect? Obviously a 5-star, but what kind of a prospect are we talking about here?
Yeah, it seems like this race for Arch is heating up here, and honestly, and kind of narrowing down too, where it does seem like the big contenders here appear to be Texas, Georgia, and Alabama, and that it also makes sense that at some point not only does he have to make a decision, but those schools have to make decisions, because they at some point, if you're not going to get Arch Manning, you got to move on and get somebody else. And so interested to see what the timetable is going to be for his choice there. But it's a very interesting quarterback class, because there's three really talented players. There's Nico, who's going to Tennessee. There's Malachi Nelson, who's currently committed to Tennessee and USC. And then there's Arch. And I think the name itself obviously carries a lot of weight. I think that the thing that if like, for example, if Texas wins Arch Manning, obviously there's going to be the question of what do you do with him and Quinn Ewers. But if you get Arch Manning in your class, you're going to have a lot of big-time recruits coming with him, because kids want to play with this guy. And so whoever wins out on Arch Manning, it's going to be a huge deal in terms of being able to compete for a top 3 or even a number 1 recruiting class.
You did tease. Sam Kahn has an article on theathletic.com about Rhett Lashley and how he took over a program at SMU that was almost not completely barren in their recruiting department, but it was like that picture, I used the name Will Smith, when he looks around in a house and nobody else is around. I'm glad you did that. It's a very intriguing piece from Sam Kahn, in case anyone has not read it, if you're a member of theathletic.com.
Yeah, it's such an interesting time now, where obviously the situation at SMU and TCU was pretty unique for that staff to go across town there and go take over the rival. But Rhett Lashley, who I think has a chance to be pretty successful there at SMU, he detailed how he was able to build a recruiting staff from scratch, and obviously nowadays, if you read that piece by Sam, it's a really good one. I definitely encourage it. You get a real sense here of where we're at with the arms race here in recruiting staffing, and why there's these personnel departments have blown up so much, because they're a lot of that is kind of it's kind of off the plate of the assistant coaches a little bit more, and onto the plate of these people who help run this recruiting operation. And there's just so much that goes into it with the portal and with setting up visits and the social media aspect of it and all that stuff. The recruiting is so complicated these days, and I thought it was a great piece that laid out all the different roles that you need to have in a recruiting department to keep up with everybody else these days.
Max, the transfer portal will get kind of refilled here after spring football starts to conclude, and already some guys jumping in. Is any surprises so far early on in spring of guys jumping in? I know the West Virginia defensive lineman was a shock to Neil Brown.
Yeah, certainly that was big news today that Akeem Messidor they're one of their best players overall, and their whole team decided to go into the portal and seek out something else. Now he's one of those guys that you would think a year from now is going to be entering the draft. And we put him on our freshman All-American team in 2020. Very talented defensive lineman, one of the best in the conference. And that's one of those where West Virginia's had a lot of attrition this offseason. Some of that not very surprising. Some of it guys looking for more playing time, that kind of stuff. But truly, Messenger is one of the best players in the conference, I think, coming back. And there was no sign this was coming from Neil Brown and his coaches, and just kind of happened over the course of 24, 48 hours. And certainly, I think it's very frustrating. And he pointed to, certainly there's stuff going on right now where you can look at attrition and say, wow, the staff must be doing something wrong, or they got a culture problem or whatever. But I think this is probably one of those cases where this is a guy that probably was looking at the landscape and has people in his ear telling him you can make more money going somewhere else. And so I'm fascinated to see if he ends up on a SEC roster or something like that, if he can be that kind of player at that level. But this is a really hard thing for these coaches right now, as this tampering is going on, and it's hard to convince a kid to stay if they feel like, as much as they're in a good position, maybe they can make more money somewhere else.
Max, can Nebraska lure O'Shawn Mathis to Scott Frost's group, or I know there's other contenders as well. Kind of how's that shaping up the race for one of the top transfers out there?
Yeah, well, speaking of trying to lure people with money, Nebraska is getting O'Shawn Mathis in for a visit for their spring game next weekend, and I think that I know a lot of people have assumed that Texas is the front runner there, that he'd go follow Gary Patterson to Austin. And, it's been kind of a quiet recruitment up to this point. But, yeah, he put that out there yesterday. He's going to go visit Lincoln. And, look, I think what we're seeing right now, within the last couple of weeks, Casey Thompson has said not only that there's more NIL money to be made at Nebraska than Texas, which I know got O'Shawn Mathis' attention, but he even floated out there, and I'm not sure I buy it, but he floated out there that, if you're a starter at Nebraska, you can make six figures. And so I think what we're seeing over the past month is there's a lot of kids that are a little more interested in visiting Nebraska and finding out what's going on there and what are the opportunities there. What can I make as a player there? And it's giving them a chance with some players like Mathis who would make a big difference. And, that's just where recruiting's going these days.
I don't know if is Warren Buffett floating out NIL money. It doesn't seem like he's that
if
kind of.
If he's not, he damn sure needs to be.
Is that kind of irresponsible investor?
Needs to be.
I think Warren Buffett probably would look at that whole, the whole landscape in college football and say, probably not a lot of ROI on that for me. I don't know if that's good for me, but I think that certainly Nebraska is one of those places where. Because it's the only game in town for the whole, for the whole state. It's the thing that everybody cares about. That's one of those fan bases where you can rally the business folks and kind of get people on board with, doing these collective type things to really take care of players.
Man, I know it's part of what the reality is of today, but man, there just seems to be a lot of grease.
Well, the Mesidor thing, it just feels icky. It does. That's a total blow to West Virginia. That, like you said, was completely out of nowhere. That just feels so rotten to me. And I'm all for Max. These guys getting opportunities. I really am. But that one, that feels a little, bad.
Yeah,
it is. And I don't know. We'll see if they can put up a fight and try and convince him to stay and convince him that that's a better situation to stay. But also, as you guys know, sometimes now. When that kid has made a decision, it may mean he's already kind of locked in for the next place.
Mm-hmm. Max, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it as always. Max Olson, senior college football writer for theathletic.com. And again, a site that's got so much information. And there's also a big story, that Ari Wasserman story about Arch Manning, who is the son of Cooper Manning, not
Cooper.
Cooper. Yeah, not Eli or Peyton. Cooper.
No, not Cooper. Cooper.
When we come back, Bob Herrig,